By the way,
Thank you for that. 2 points. One, Berkeley just caved on the libraries. We had a sit-in at the Anthro Library that the students and the librarians stayed there all night last week, kept it open, and the chancellor and the provost got together with donors, and they found money, and they're keeping the library open. Second, what you said about research and teaching is really important because there's a move on to separate them. When the administration talks about days of instruction, as if that were separate from research, they're undermining the whole idea of a research university. What is it? What is the difference between this and going to college? It's a huge difference. At UC, the researchers do the teaching. They're the people who are doing the creating of new knowledge. They're teaching graduate students, training the next generation of people who are doing the creation of new knowledge. And more people go to graduate school out of UC and professional schools than any other place in the country. And when we teach undergraduates, they're going to be the generation after that, those graduate students going into the professions and into the creation of new knowledge. The reason that they're taught by people doing the research is that they can be, quote, trained. They're not just getting, quote, instruction as if it were a glorified high school. That isn't what it is, but the public doesn't know this. The public doesn't know the difference between a UC education and otherwise, and the administration is undermining it by having things like a commission on the instructional delivery service or talking about days of instruction and so on. That needs to stop.
We have time for 2 more questions, please.
Carson Schutze from Linguistics. We've heard a lot about all the bad things that need to be stopped and very little about how exactly to go about it. So I want to ask a very pointed question, which is, to what extent are President Yudof and the regents the heart of the problem, and if so, do we need to get them removed, and how would we do that, if so?
Sondra.
Well, I think a no confidence vote has already been started for President Yudof. I think joining that no confidence vote, I don't have the information with me, but probably some do, might not be a bad way to start. He's not shown himself to be a friend of academic freedom. I have various grounds for that. And he hasn't shown himself to be a good lobbyist for us in Sacramento. But I think that what everyone here on this panel has said, and many people in the audience, both for panel number 1 and 2, is that the good things we can do all involve organizing. I don't think we should have a hierarchy of things that are more important than other things to do. The important thing is for everybody to get engaged through unions, through various coalitions, by writing op-eds, as somebody said in the first panel, and continuous lobbying of our administrators and so on. Keep the pressure on.
I just want to add, I think there really is a short-term and long-term goal. I think we do have to long-term get more money from the state, but the chancellor told us himself he doesn't expect that to happen for 2 and 3 years. So our question is, what's going to happen in the short term? He did not tell us what's going to happen next year. If they lay off all the lecturers, if they turn graduate students into readers like they have started to do, we're talking about we're losing like 2,000 classes next year. We're talking about a total inability to graduate people on time, a total inability of getting classes. Something has to be done now, and it can be done locally. There is a large thing, but we have to put pressure on the chancellor and the people at this university, this campus, to fight these changes and to find better solutions, because things could get really bad next year if we don't do something now.
A couple of things, Carson. First, it's true that if we manage to change the 2/3 rules, it'll take 2 years for that to do anything, but that's crucial. It's necessary for after the 2 years. But in between, we can set up a speakers bureau of alumni and other people to speak on things like the oil severance tax and closing other loopholes. That is, it's not just that If you organize the alumni of this university, there are many, many ways to raise revenue without raising taxes. That can be done, and that has to do with putting pressure on a very small number of people in red districts. That is, it takes 4 more votes to make the Democrats in the, a 2/3 majority. And if you can get enough pressure in those districts, target those districts and go after them, or target 6 or 8 districts and go after them, you can, let's say, pick the oil severance tax as a higher educational source, right? That would be a very powerful thing to do. With respect to the regents, you're not going to protest the regents and shouting them down and so on is not going to help. However, quietly and respectfully pointing out that they're failures. That is, these are people who see themselves as successes. They want to help, and you say, you are failures. You are failing us. Why aren't you out there changing the state? Why aren't you out there putting pressure on Republicans who don't want to raise revenues? Why aren't you supporting, the California Democracy Act, which is what I'm calling it? Why aren't you doing that? You're failures. Go to the regents' meeting. Don't shout them down. Just say, you're failures.
We have time for one last question in the back, please.
It's actually a couple of comments.
Could you stand up, please?
I just wanted to thank Professor Cliffman for bringing in the situation of the library, which I think is just deplorable. But what has kind of been left out, I think, a lot of this discussion is also the role of the staff at the university and what impact this is having on them as far as issues of morale. And also with the staff who work a lot with the students. So many cuts have been in student services. The counseling center and the crisis of 2004, the career center, I think they lost something like 10 or 11 positions. And this latest cut, I think they lost like 4. Those people work themselves to death to try to help the students to get on a career path and to support them in finding jobs and positions. And then, the facilities folks have just been killing themselves getting the campus beautiful here for the Parents' Weekend that's coming up, and they'll do all of that work, and they just want in their union contract the right to get paid $14 an hour. Many of them make less than $30,000 a year, and they're taking this 4% reduction, salary reduction as well, because they're being told by their superiors that your union won't agree to the furlough plan, so we're going to have to lay you off. So many of them are wanting the furlough plan to be approved by their union. So there are a lot of pressures that are being put on people that are on the lower levels, and there doesn't seem to be an appreciation for the fact that if you have academic counselors who are laid off, then students have to stand in line longer. It's harder to get an appointment to go in and get academic advising. If you're going to be laying off people who are working in the offices of student financial aid or these other places, how then that's going to lead to less student satisfaction, which then will lead to fewer people donating to the university. And I've had students say to me, this place is not going to get another dime from me once I get out of here because I paid it up while I'm here. So I think that better communication, because I found out about the walkout day by chance from some of our students, and if there could be a more concerted effort even between the unions and the various organizing groups to get the word out so everybody knows what's going on and has a clear picture.
Thank you. Wanted to thank the panelists so much: George Lakoff, Bob Samuels, Christian Haesemeyer, Mark Sawyer, Sondra Hale. Thank you all very much for coming. Let's keep educated, let's keep active, let's keep organizing. So join us on November 17th to welcome the UC Regents.